Since the war began, the government have received countless inquiries from all over the kingdom, from men of all ages who are, for one reason or another, not at present engaged in military service, and who wish to do something for the defense of their country. Well, now is your opportunity. We want large numbers of such men in Great Britain, between the ages of 17 and 65, to come forward now and offer their service. The name of the new force will be the Local Defense Volunteers.
What is the site? Okay, here we are in the middle of Hinton Charter House near Bath. Excitingly for some, it's got a nice conflict archaeological site. Surrounding the area, we've got loads of Roman and loads of prehistoric, everything else going on. But slap bang through the middle of this wood, we've got this fantastic micro-environment of a Second World War anti-invasion defence line. Basically, 70 years ago, during the start of the Second World War in 1940, following the evacuation from Dunkirk, our country was faced the real very threat of invasion from Germany. So much so, in a matter of months, from June to August, September, huge amounts of defences were constructed throughout the country.
And what Phil's identified is actually a very good, very well preserved stretch of one of the defence lines that ran around Bristol.
They constructed a huge amount of defences, a ditch, pillboxes, slit trenches. At the end of the Second World War, they thought, well, there's no point filling it in the middle of the woods, so they've left it. So we've got a preserved micro-environment of that once larger militarised landscape.
World War II archaeology is unique because we have a perception with the wider public that once you get to the 20th century, archaeology, in essence, is not valid. There's the perception that we understand and we have the knowledge of exactly what happened and what actually occurred. The reason why that we have to investigate World War II archaeology is because that's not the case. What we understand from the historical record and what in reality actually occurred is completely different in some respects.
The Second World War is particularly interesting also from the point of view of its geography. In England we have a very particular kind of archaeology, trying to stop the German invasion, which never actually happened, the material traces of which are all around us at the moment. It's a very distinctive kind of archaeology, which you don't find in other parts of Europe, and you certainly don't find in other parts of the world. So what we're looking at here is real detail, really unique material, which tells unique stories about people in times of war.
We're basically excavating a series of trenches to look at the anti-tank defences, look at the pillboxes, look at a series of slit trenches, and also looking for any material traces that might be related to soldiers actually occupying the pillbox.
Well, this is trench 1, and what we've got here is the first trench that is actually into the anti-tank ditch. And what we're trying to find out is the original profile of the trench. Because obviously after silting it all covers up and sort of erodes down into a slope, and we don't know exactly how they dug it. Because this is a unique trench and a unique site at Hinton Charter House, we have never actually dug an anti-tank ditch to see whether the records of the HQ were right in what they were sort of, when they planned it, and how deep they are and how wide they are.
So in this part of the ditch, we're looking for basically how deep it goes and like the outline of the actual ditch itself. Right now we found the back dig where everything that was dug up was put on top. And then we're finding the bottom right now, as well as a fire step, which is where a gunner would have stepped up onto kind of a higher platform to be able to shoot at the enemy.
When we think of the home front 1940 and the defence against the anti-invasion, certainly one TV series comes to mind, Dad's Army. Brilliant as in the concept that Dad's Army was, and accurate in certain ways. Sadly, sometimes we all then get swept away and lose. Where it was a very serious organisation, they would have laid their lives down for the country, and they'd done some great heroic acts. As we're seeing here in this landscape, certainly in June 1940, at the birth of the Home Guard, very much the country was being heavily fortified Even more so when you think about how their call to arms, over 500,000 chaps called up and signed up in a matter of months and a matter of days, was the fact that they were able to release regular soldiers then to go to other frontiers or other areas of theatre. Certainly as the war progressed, you got uniforms renamed to the Home Guard by Winston Churchill because he didn't like the LDV, he wanted a bit more of a professional name. Certainly by the end of 1940-41, there were a lot more professional units, very much trained on a regular basis. There onwards, they took over a lot of the roles of the regular army on coastal defence, on anti-aircraft defence, and certainly patrolling the local landscapes. So whilst we all sit back now and laugh at Dad's army and the Home Guard, and yes, it was very much a Heath Robinson approach, they very much had a serious nature, serious undertaking, and the actual defences built in that early phases were not something to be laughed at. They were a serious weaponry, serious constructions, and serious amount of time and effort to make sure we were in the best way of operation if we had been invaded.
Would you please oblige us with the Bren gun, or failing that, a hand grenade will do? We've got some ammunition in a rather damp condition, and Major Huss has an arquebus that was used at Waterloo. With the vicar's stirrup pump, a pitchfork and a spade, it's rather hard to guard an aerodrome. So if you can't oblige us with the Bren gun, the Home Guard might as well go home.
In Trench 1, where we've been digging across the anti-tank ditch, what we've found is that there's not very much debitage from when the trench was used, and so we've gone down very quickly onto the cut of the 1940s. What we've been able to see quite clearly in the stratigraphy is the cut itself is not as deep as the manual suggests.
It was actually dug to half that depth with the spoil, the deposit, remade into a bank to then give it to the true depth.
In Trench 3, where we have what is a standard slit trench, we also then have a fire step. What we have in the manuals, again, is a fire step is almost a cut into the bank, and so it's quite well defined that you have a step. What we actually have is a cut where it sort of smooths off slightly, whereas you can then lean on top of it and then fire back to cover towards the anti-tank ditch.
They didn't expect to find any kind of fire ditch or fire step like that. They just expected a straight ditch because it was done extremely fast in like 2 months. But it shows that they actually took a little bit more time and thought into doing these ditches and deviated from what the field manual would have essentially said was standard for a ditch like this.
So again, using just the written record, it would have been a stereotypical trench going away through, no adaptation done. We've now found, using the archaeology, that these trenches were adapted. And this, in my mind, is why doing recent archaeology, certainly the contemporary past 20th century conflict archaeology, though it's all documented, actually what was done in the field to what the manual says, they've obviously used it to adapt to the landscape. So this is why archaeology, in my mind, is important, because we can almost disprove the written record.
What we're talking about with the archaeology of the Second World War is part of a broader remit of looking at 20th century conflict, because there's all kinds of stories locked away in woods, locked away in objects and museums that tell us the secret story of the Second World War, the everyday experiences of everyday people. It's a kind of archaeology of the modern world in times of conflict. The extremes of human behaviour, what we're dealing with, and the material traces. And this is why the Second World War is so key to our understanding of where we are today.
Colonel Montmorency, who was in Calcutta in '92, emerged from his retirement for the war. He wasn't very pleased with all he heard and all he saw, but whatever he felt, he tightened his belt and organized a corps. Poor Colonel Montmorency thought, considering all the wars he'd fought, the Home Guard was his job to do or die.